Hello and welcome along to another tutorial on Fusion 360 with your host John Doherty. Today we're going to look at how to create some simple components using the software. I hope you enjoy it. So here we are in the software again, Fusion 360 software. The first thing I'm going to do today is I'm going to just simply start drawing, and I'm going to draw a base for my unit. So I'm going to look at something along the lines of something you might put together if you're designing a lamp, but we're not going to design the entire thing. We're just going to have a look at how the components might work, the first few components of a lamp. So I'm going to go to my top base, and I'm going to start drawing straight away, and I'm going to get a center rectangle, and I'm going to draw that, and I'm just going to keep it very simple. I'm going to make it 100 millimeters by 100 millimeters. And I'm going to press enter. Then I'm going to stop sketch, hit the house key, and then as a shortcut I can press E for extrude and pull this up here. So we're going to make this 15 millimeters high, and that's going to be my base, but I'm just going to give it a little bit of a chamfered edge as well. So we'll chamfer it. So I'll click on the first one that I see, and then I'll hold shift down on the keyboard, and then I'll select the other four edges, and then I'll give that a chamfer of, let's try 10 on that. 10 looks pretty good. Press enter. Okay, so I've got my base, pretty simple base. Obviously you could design that slightly differently for your lamp, but this is just to give you an idea. And that's going to be my base, and the base is a really important component, and we're going to look at that. At the moment though, this isn't a component, it's just a body. Okay, so bodies can't really do much, they can't interact with other components, so we want to change that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here, and then I'm going to right click where it says body, and I'm going to go to create components from body. Now this is a component, and you see I can move it around the page like so. But I don't want to be able to do that with my base, because I want to be able to ground my first component. So I'm going to right click on that, and I'm going to press ground. And I want to go to capture position, and we'll look at it here. We can see that it says there's a little drawing pin sign or symbol, and that just means that's locked in. I can't move it around anymore, and it's really important to do that with your first component. So I'm now going to double click on this component, and I'm just going to call that the base. It's a good idea just to rename your components early on, so you get an idea of what components you're working with, and it just makes it a little bit easier to navigate through what you're doing. So the next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a second component. So I'm going to go up to the top here, and I'm going to save my file actually. So a file save, and I'm just going to call it basic components. And we're going to locate somewhere for that to go. So I'm going to go to my first project. And we'll select it in there. So it's worth renaming what you're doing here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to work from this basic components file to create my other components. I'm going to right click here, I'm going to create new component, and I'm going to call that my stem, which is going to be the main part of my my lamp vertically. And you can see here now that I've got two components within my main drawing, and it's really important that you create the components from the main drawing here. So I can turn off the base, turn on, off. I'm going to keep it off for now, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to draw a circle, and I'm going to make that 35 diameter. Stop sketch, and then the house key, and I'm going to press E for extrude, and then I'm going to make that 170 millimeters high. Press enter, and now I've got my stem, which is going to fit into my base. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this component, and I don't need to ground this one. I'm just going to drag this up out of the way, and then I'm going to switch my other component back on. If I want to do anything in terms of joining the two components, we're going to look at that in a second. But first, I want to go back to my base because I need to make a modification to my base. I'm going to turn my stem off and I'm going to work on my base. I'm going to go to the top again so I can interchange between components and work on different ones. So I'm going to go to the circle command, capture position, always capture position, and I'm going to go 35 millimeters. And what I'm going to do there is I am going to extrude that. This time I'm going to go -10. And that will be a cut. And I'll press OK. So I've got a gap there for my stem to go into. So I'm going to turn my stem back on again. Okay. But I'm still activated in my base component, and I don't want to be. I want to make my main drawing active, so the two components will show up. And then I'm going to press J, and J is for joint. Okay. Now joint will allow me to join the two components. So I'm going to select the first component. So select the base of it, and then I'm also going to select the second component, and I want to select this surface here, and you'll see the components join together like that, which looks very dramatic as it starts to shake. And the reason for that is because it's a rigid joint, so you can't move those out. So it's a sturdy rigid joint, okay, like a weld or something like that. But we can also change that, so we can have a look at some of these different types of joining methods. So we can go, for example, to revolute, so it would be able to rotate. We could look at sliding in and out, perhaps if it was going all the way through. We're going to stick with revolute for now. We're going to look at some of those others a little bit later on in a bit more detail. So we're going to press OK there, and now I've got two components that are fitted together. So I want to make some modifications on my stem. So when I do that, I go back into stem to make sure it's the active component, and I quite like turning the other components off so I can just concentrate on what I'm doing here. So I'm going to go to circle command. And you can see here I'm going to try and draw a circle here, but you can see the circle isn't quite appearing where it needs to appear. So we're going to go back again and we're going to do something a little bit different. Okay, so we're going to stop sketch, and then we're going to construct a tangent plane, which is really a really useful tool. So tangent plane, 0 degrees, that's fine. And what that allows us to do is draw on the side of a circle, for example. So I'll go to circle command. It doesn't really matter where I position this too much, just as long as it's in the center. And I'm going to make that, let's have a look at 10. Yeah, 10 looks about right. So I'm going to press enter there, 10 millimeters. Up near the top, doesn't really matter where it is. And then extrude. And I'm going to cut through that again, press enter. And I just want to create a gap there, like so. So we've got that in position, so that's going to be useful for when we want to join other components to that later on. We can create other components, which is what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to go back to my main drawing, and you see this is really important. I go back to my main drawing and I right click here and I go new component, and I'm going to call this bolt, and press enter. So I'm active in my bolt component now. I'm going to turn my stem off. And what I want to do here is I want to draw from the front this time. So I'm going to draw a circle, and I'll select my front plane, and this time I'm going to make that I'm going to go with 14 diameter, stop sketch, and I'm going to select that, and I'm going to extrude it, and I'm going to make it 3, and then I'm going to take the surface here and I'm going to draw on the surface. I'm going to go to circle command again, and this time I'm going to make it 10, and then I'm going to extrude that, the width of my other component, actually slightly wider. I want to make it 10 millimeters wider, and you'll see why in a second. So I'm going to go 45, and then I'm going to add an additional section here, which is going to be the same as the other side. So I'm going to go to circle, and then I'm going to go 14. And then I'm going to press E for extrude, and make sure I'm extruding everything, and I'm just going to press 3 again. And I've got my very simple kind of locking bolt, if you like. So we'll see how that comes in just a second. So that was drawn here. So I'm going to switch these other components back on, go back to my active component here now. And I'm going to try and join all this together shortly. But what you'll notice is that this part here is 45, this is 35, so it's going to be very difficult to join that accurately. But what I want is I want two handles to fit on here and here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw those now. So back into my other components, switch all these off, and go again, new component, double click, and we're going to call this handle 1. And this time I'm going to draw from the front, and I'm going to go with the line command. So I'm going to make this, we'll go with 120, and then I will draw a line down here. In fact, just to give it a little bit more design, I'll go with an arc. 30 mil. And we get an arc here as well. And what I want to use is my two datum points here to draw in some circles. So we're going to make this 10, and we'll also make this one 10. Let's come up 12, so just undo that. Make this one 10. Press enter. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to look to extrude this. So I'll extrude it by 5 and press enter. So I've now got one handle. And what I want to do here in this situation is I want to join all this together. So I'm going to go back in here, and I'm going to move my handle out of the way and make my entire drawing active again. So we're just going to concentrate on one side for now, so just to show you how this works. So what I'm going to do first of all is go to J for joint capture position. I'm going to select the edge here, and then I'm going to select the edge here, and it's got a revolute joint on it there, as you can see. So I'm then going to try and I'm going to press OK for that, and then I'm going to try and join a few more components. So we're going to look at joining this one, this one with this edge here. And that didn't work out, so just cancel that for a second. I'll try that again. J, and let's press OK. And there we go. We've got a nice little solid joint here for the handle. So I can now move that around, I can pivot that. And what I could also do in this situation, I'll make another little video on this, is what would be useful there in that situation is I could make both handles first, and then I could do it all in one go. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to make another video and show you how to copy a component, which I think would be a nice little useful video and a continuation to this one. But I hope you've enjoyed that.